So this episode, we've been talking about the AFC East. We started with the Jets on Monday, where I have them basically riding into the sunset as champions of the NFL. We also covered the Miami Dolphins yesterday, and today we cover a team in which um, I feel like me and Gooch are separated as far as our opinions are concerned, and we're talking about the 2022 New England Patriots. Right now, last year they finished 10-7. For a little while last year, Gooch, you remember we were like, where did they come from? All of a sudden, they're in this division race, and Mac Jones is playing well, and everything was going well. But now all of a sudden, there's a couple pieces that left town, and their projection goes down to 8.5. However, Gooch, you've done some research today. Before I get into the key losses, there's a market here.
Yeah, so I think the Patriots are one of those teams that, I mean, every team you should really shop around. But I looked around at, in the mornings, I look around at the team total projections as we're doing these breakdowns for the teams. And a lot of the times you see some of the things that are like lining up fairly even, where you'll see, 8.5, maybe 9, a half a game discrepancy. But Bet360 has the Patriots as low as 7.5, the over-under. So if you're looking at the over for the Patriots this year, go to Bet360, create an account, and definitely place your bet there because it's a full game and a half in a lot of these books. So definitely Bet360. Over 7.5 wins, I feel like that's free money. I know that you might think the Patriots are going to regress a little bit, but 8 and 9 would be a regression. So I think 8 and 9 is a lock for any Bill Belichick coach team. There, I said it. Preview over. 8 wins. No, they're going to do better than that.
All right, so let me get into it real quick. Some of the key losses for your 2022 Patriots. Not a lot, but there are some that are noteworthy. Shaq Mason, one of their better guards, he's shipped off. He leaves, goes to the Bucks. Both linebackers, Kyle Van Noy. I'm sorry, Kyle Van Noy being a linebacker, and now J.C. Jackson. Why I said both is because both of them actually shipped themselves over to L.A. to play with the Chargers. So the J.C. Jackson leaves, one of the better corners in football. And then Neil Harry, he left to the Bears. He was kind of a lost cause over there anyway. Wasn't really getting the rub. But yeah, so that's losses. I don't really see too many more. Their gains, Devonte Parker, they bring on to maybe be, I guess, wide receiver 1 right off the rip. You would think.
Jacoby Meyer.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a couple guys. They bring in Terrence Mitchell from the Texans. I don't know if that's their answer for J.C. Jackson's departure, but that's kind of tough. They do bring in, this one was under the radar. I don't even remember it happening. Jabril Peppers from the Giants. So they brought Peppers to play safety for the Patriots.
Seems like such a Belichick guy, too. He really does.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Speaking of Belichick guys, they bring in Ty Montgomery. I feel like his versatility of being either in or out as far as running back or receiver. Ty Montgomery's been a journeyman for a couple years now. And then they brought in Mac Wilson as well. Their draft was puzzling, and that started to lead me to believe that like the regime was just either Bill Belichick has completely lost it, or they're just really in a different headspace than everybody else to preview the team. Like I look in their draft, and their first overall pick, I can understand. 29th overall, they go get Cole Strange, interior offensive lineman. You want to protect Mr. Mac Jones? I get it, right? Then you go down the road, and you're looking at their second pick, which is Taekwon Thornton, a wide receiver. Wide receivers typically who have been drafted by the Patriots are just not playing out. I don't know if it's a Mac Jones thing from last year, or I don't know if it's a Tom Brady. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the success rate over with New England as far as receivers are concerned is that good. And then they address 2 cornerbacks in the third and the fourth. That makes sense. They need them. Then a 6th-round pick, and while I know 6th-round picks typically don't make these teams, maybe sometimes you do, but they drafted another running back. It's just like, what are we doing? That's why I feel like the Patriots are a little out of touch.
Yeah, they drafted the running back, and I just saw a report on the running back that they drafted that he's going to get like a heavy workload this year and replace James White in the offense. He's like James White, just new and young. I would imagine that that's going to work out. They do well. While they don't really do well with receivers, they do have these running backs that tend to pan out for situational football. They have like 20 running backs scattered. Like Rex Burkhead's been in the league for 9 years, right?
That's true.
How?
With the Patriots, now you look at their depth chart. It's obviously led by Mac Jones, year 2 of him. I don't know how you felt like he did last year, Gooch. Like, it's obviously rookie. The trials and tribulations of being a rookie in the NFL, playing in a somewhat good division with a bunch of good defenses, and then the one game that he won where he threw one ball or whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like, so difficult to judge to see what we're going to get out of Mac Jones in year two. Their running backs, obviously, Damian Harris, Ram Stevenson. I like both of those guys. They're fine. Devonte Parker being your one, maybe Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne. It's alarming to me. When you have a young quarterback, they're going to be relying on the underneath stuff. So your tight ends are Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. And don't get me wrong, two of the better ones, I think, in the league. So that's cool. Offensive line lost a couple pieces, and they're tough. But the Shaq Mason thing is a big loss. And when you flip it over to the defense, it's a very new look defense. The one guy that comes to mind and it's going to jump out at you is because of his red sleeves, and that's Matt Judon. And then there's Malcolm Butler still there, Devin McCourty still there, Jalen Mills, who never decided to dye his hair outside of the green from Philly, is still there. So their defense is, I can't say improved. And based off of Vegas, Gooch, the 8.5 discrepancy, meaning let's see if some people play the under, meaning they could be 2 to 3 games worse than last year. How do you look at the Patriots as a whole?
All right, so I'm a big Mac Jones guy. Mac Jones did a lot of work in the offseason, and it shows physically. He's svelte, and he's looking shredded. Shout out to my boy Mac for that. But not only that, I'm sure Mac Jones has been in the film room because, there is no stipulation in his contract that he has to have 4 hours of independent film study because that dude was in his backyard with his girlfriend in the preseason last year running through plays and walkthroughs. So Mac Jones he's addicted to the game film, which is a great thing in a Belichick ran system. We're not so sure what's going on with the coordinators, but I feel like that's a Belichick secret, and I think that they're probably going to be fine. If the defensive coordinator is still his son, their defense was really good last year. I expect their defense to be still very good, and their philosophy and their style of play, it's not going to lean on Mac Jones, but I do believe that Mac Jones has something about him that when the team rallies around Mac Jones, they get behind it. Like, he's got the locker room right away, and let's not sit here and discount the fact that it's Bill Belichick, bro. I can't look at the Patriots and say, you know what, wow, they're really going to be good. But I haven't been able to do that since the Randy Moss era, where I've looked at the Patriots and said, wow, this team really jumps off the paper at me. Like, this roster is loaded. They're simply not. And they're simply they're a perennial contender anyway. If you look at the tail end of Brady's career, they really didn't have the greatest roster. And Brady's stats were showing. He was starting to become a liability in that offense. And Brady right now at 51 needs a lot of parts around him. Mac Jones, he might be able to manage it. And I'm not saying Mac Jones is better than Brady, but he's just as good as Brady is for this system right now. And I know people are going to jump down my throat for that, but do you think that the Patriots would have been worth a bunch more wins last year with Tom Brady at quarterback? I don't know. I think it would have been a lot of barking at his young receivers, and it just wouldn't work out. Brady has this thing where he demands excellence, and if the guys around him aren't, I think it could implode on them fast. That relationship soured, and Mac Jones is the guy for the job, and he got rid of his man tits, so I expect him to be improved on offense just a little bit, at least for that fact.
He looks the part. He looks great. He doesn't look like, 7th round pick Tom Brady did in his rookie year anymore. He doesn't look like he's a ball of putty. Yes, he got in better shape. Congratulations to Mac Jones. The problem is their schedule, Gooch, and you have to go to the schedule. And when you're talking about how many wins this team can compile in 2022. Now, when you look at their schedule, much like I did for the Jets, where I didn't have the Jets losing at all, right? I didn't have them losing until week 5, week 6. I'm looking at the Patriots, and I don't see them winning until week 5, bro. The at Miami start is a loss. The at Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh's going to be a little bit better than what we're predicting. And I know that I picked Pittsburgh against Pittsburgh probably in the past, to line up these games.
Maybe even in this game. No, I think you've been low on the Patriots.
Yes. So
even
I think
during
Pittsburgh
the Pittsburgh
at home
week
would take that down. And then they got to go play Lamar Jackson. And then they got to go play your boy, Aaron Rodgers, a.k.a. Nicolas Cage. You know what I mean? So, where do you find that win? Do you have to scramble and scratch and claw to get one out of that?
Yeah.
First 4?
Maybe 2. But look, I think the Dolphins game is going to be a tight game. It's going to come down to a couple plays at the end, no matter which way you slice it. And Devonte Parker, that could be a game where he shows the fuck out. I know that the corners in Miami are really good, but Devonte Parker rises to the occasion a lot. I've seen him highball a bunch of really good corners that you wouldn't expect him to beast on. And there's something about Parker. I think he's going to flourish in that system, and he's a perfect fit. So I do believe that Parker is a good player for that system. It's situational. He's not going to be the one, but they're going to alternate on who gets the targets on specific games because that's just how Belichick does it. The rest of their schedule through 4 weeks, I don't see any gimme games, but I don't think the Patriots are a gimme game in any of them either, except for obviously the Green Bay game. Traveling to Lambeau might be a little rough on them, obviously.
When you look at the next 4, right, then I could see them compiling a couple dubs, right? Like home against the Lions. I think the Patriots could pull that off. You know what I mean? Like I think they could win that game. Home against and then home against the Bears in week 7. You can get that game. But I don't know if I feel confident against at Cleveland in week 6 and even at New York in week 8. You know what I mean?
I got them no better than 5-4 after 9 weeks going into the bye, and I got them no worse than 4-5.
See, that's crazy. This is where it's the massive differential with me and you. At the bye in week 10, I found 2 wins. I found 2 wins in 10 weeks, and I got them at 2-7 going into their bye. So that's a massive gap, I think. You said no worse than 4. What is your best? What is your ceiling there for the first
5? I don't have much wiggle room for my prediction. I think that they're just going to hover around that 500 mark all year because they aren't a great team, but they're definitely not a bad team, and they're going to play good defense. So a lot of tight games, and it's going to come down to coaching a lot late.
Now off the bye, and I said this against the Jets. I did say the Jets would probably lose that game. I like the Patriots off a bye at home against the Jets. Give me that 3rd win for me. But ready for this stretch? At Minnesota, no gimme there. Home against the Bills. At Arizona, as long as Kyler does his 4 hours of studying, maybe they will pull that one off. I don't know. I don't think so. And then at Vegas and at Cincinnati. Those are all hard.
Well, the
games.
Minnesota game is
not fun.
The Minnesota game's a primetime game, so that's probably a win because Kirk Cousins sucks on primetime. So I mean, yeah, I do agree that the stretch down the run makes it really hard for them to do anything this year. But if they're not 6-4 going into that final stretch after the Jets, starting with the Vikings, I think their season is just going to be a lost season. They need to be at least 6-4 because they're going to rattle off some losses for sure late. There's obvious, we don't know about the Raiders yet. The Bengals obviously are a good team, but we don't know what they're going to do in the year after their Super Bowl run. Cardinals in December, I mean, you get the Cardinals in December, they haven't really typically played well the last couple years. So while we're looking at some hard matchups, situationally, I think they could go into Arizona and win that game. I definitely think they could go into Minnesota and win that game. And then we'll see about the Raiders and the Bengals. I don't think it's going to be gimmies. The Dolphins at home, having to have Miami come up north late in the season like that, I think that's going to be an advantage for New England, but will probably also be a fucking huge game for Miami for their playoff push, or both teams at that.
Yeah. For as far as I'm concerned, they're back end of that season after the Vegas game when you got to go to Cincinnati and then you get to go home against Miami, who might be playing for a playoff spot, and the Patriots won't be playing for a playoff spot at this point of the season. That's why I like Miami there, and then I like them to win that game, even if that's one of the wins I gave them. But then they got to finish the year at Buffalo, and if Buffalo's looking to try to get maybe a 1 seed at this point, they're going to beat the brakes off the Patriots at the end of the year. You know what I mean? So all in all, Gooch, crazy as it sounds, I have a range, and the range starts at 4 and ends at 6. Like the ceiling for me is a 6-11 bad season for the New England Patriots this year. Like we've been given the rub for the Miami Dolphins. I praise the Jets, right? The AFC East bottom feeders this year will be the New England Patriots. And I know it's hard to say that considering their lineage and considering who's their head coach and considering all the history that these guys have. I still think that the Patriots are going to be hurting this year, as well as Mac Jones to make strides. I get it. Mac Jones will definitely take a couple steps forward in year 2. He looks the part. He's probably going to be better. But overall, I think these guys are going to struggle, man. That schedule is not a forgiving one at all.
So if you got him at max, you said 6 wins. So Dave is definitely taking the under. I'll go with the over across the board. I think that 9 wins. I could see 9 wins is what I'm going to go with, but I could see 8 and then hover depending on which book you're using. You might get the under. But 8-9 or 9-8, and that's where I'm sticking with. I think it's a 500 team, maybe a little bit better. They're going to win some games they shouldn't, and then vice versa. They'll probably lose some games that they should win, and it'll all balance out in the end. And they'll be on the fringe of the playoffs, and they might sneak in depending on how some of these teams out west beat up on each other. But it's a tough division too now. You got the Jets climbing, and they're supposedly surging, even though I don't really buy into the Jets just yet. Miami's better, and their defense is really good. So they also have they've played against New England fairly well in years past. So not going to be easy for the Patriots, but I think that they could sneak to a 9-win season, and maybe Belichick sticks around for one more year.